Hello, this is Dr. Harriet Fraad, bringing you the podcast Capitalism Hits Home, a podcast about how the economy and politics and culture and personal life interpenetrate and create one another. Personal life is usually left out of the discourse about what's happening, but that's a truly wrong idea and a bad omission. Today, I want to talk about a class revolution. It's the only class revolution that's happened in the United States for a long time. And it's not only in the United States, but it's the United States that I'm discussing. And that is that until, I would say, the late 70s, women worked. The overwhelming majority of women were married and worked not for money in the outer economy, but in the economy of the household, where they produced cleanliness, cooked food, order, childcare. They also helped their husband express their emotional needs because men's permission to do that outside the house was not allowed in a patriarchal society, which certainly ours was. And they also produced social connection for their husbands because they invited the relatives over, they connected the husbands with the children, they entertained the husband's friends, and they were given an allotment to do the household chores and maintain the household. Sort of like on the medieval manor, the serf worked the land that belonged to the lord of the manor and was given, he or she and they did the work and were allowed to live, but never had the means to easily change where they lived or for whom. And really, until very recently, divorce was considered a shame on the family. The rules were looser for Black families because Black men never earned a family wage that could support a dependent wife and children because of the racism of the United States. But for a very long time, women were in that feudal position of having a job, maintaining men's lives, maintaining their bodies, feeding them, giving them order, giving them emotional and social connection. That didn't change until the 70s, particularly for white men. And in the 1950s, America was about 90% white. That has changed. So it's now 57% white, but that was a different reality. Women's goal was being attractive enough to get a man to support them and children for the rest of their lives. There were jokes about that. The joke for men was there's a handy little thing called a wife. You screw it on the bed and it does all the work, the housework, the childcare. Great thing. And for women, because marriage was crucial and also a kind of life sentence for men and women, since it was really socially frowned on to be divorced. Men are like linoleum. You lay them right once, you could walk on them for 20 years. So marriage was the overwhelming emotional connector in our society, and it was the way that children were raised. Unfortunately, that's the primary way children are raised now, which is really sad since the overwhelming majority of marriages end in either formal, legal, or informal separation and divorce. And I should say, because people don't understand this, between 40 and 50% of first marriages end in legal separation or divorce. And then another, at least 10%, they don't even count them, will end in informal separation or divorce, because a divorce costs on average $7,000. And a lot of couples who don't have wealth to fight over or children to fight over just make an agreement and separate without the legal system. 60 to 67% of second marriages will end in legal or informal separation or divorce, and that would be 70 to 77% if you count the informal divorces. And for third marriages, 70% will end in legal or legal separation or divorce, and it'll be 80%. And I think that's because a lot of people don't do much introspecting when a marriage falls apart. They just think, oh, I better get another one. And so they bring the same problems that they had with one partner into the relationship with another. However, that doesn't exist now. Marriage has broken down. And so that system of the household, which was more feudal in nature, where the woman is working in exchange for protection and a home and protection for her children, dependent on a male wage, has broken down. That is a revolutionary change. Now, either you have independent women, and the majority of American women now are not married and they don't live with a man. And you also have, so there's a whole independent women, the majority, and independent men who live alone, although a lot of men marry younger women. At any rate, you also have then another kind of household, which is a communal household, where both men and women, or two men or whoever, two women, whoever is married, try to do everything communally. They try to decide together what has to be done and arrange it and do it together. So no one person is doing all the domestic work and another person all the employment, and they share their resources, both employed outside the home as well as within it. And that really is a change, because now more than 78% of women with children are in the labor force. The labor force now is 43% women. Big change. And so that kind of home of the dependent wife and children and the wage-earning male no longer exists, and women are no longer legally allowed to rape their wives. That started to change and was permanently changed, at least legally, in 1993. They don't own their wives' sexuality. They don't own their wives' labor. And they're either in communal households or households that drive for being communal, or feudal households or independent households. That's very, very different. Another revolution, which has really been very painful for the next generation, is a revolution in childcare. Women are still the primary child carers in the United States. Only 6% of men are single parents. 94% of single parents are women. And children are really in trouble, because women have to work outside the home as well as within it, and children are abandoned. Daycare is very expensive in America. In other countries, it's provided for free, but not in the United States. It's $21,000 on average for average daycare for an infant. And if you have two, of course, that's 42%. I mean, $42,000 a year. Wow. And so children are in trouble. They're left in front of televisions in wet diapers. They're farmed off to a series of relatives where they don't, or friends, whoever happens to be able to do it that day. And 1 out of 6 kids in the United States goes hungry, in the richest country in the world. In New York City, for example, 1 out of 8 are homeless. They don't even have a home, and they're in terrible trouble. If you look at the drawings of homeless children, they're very different from the drawings of children with a home. Most children starting at about 6 or 7 until 10 or 11 draw a line for the ground, and then they have a tree, 2 lines and a ball representing a tree, little V's representing birds. But for homeless children, everything's in the air because they don't have any stability, and stability and continuity are crucial ingredients in child development. These are revolutionary changes in personal life. The instability of families, the abandonment of children, the poverty of children, particularly in the United States. I mean, if you live in a country like France, childcare is free from 3 on and is very inexpensive, high-quality childcare before then, with a pediatric nurse on staff to help with a sick child. They do a lot. We've always, in the past, counted on immigrants to replenish our population, so we didn't do anything for our children the way some other countries have. This has been a revolutionary change. It's as revolutionary as the American empire is falling. That's changed. The whole economic background of families has changed. BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and by this time, 11 others and 20 others applying, have now more money than the G20 or the G7 countries. They're richer and can do more for their people. And in America, where things are so unequal, in 1970, we were the most egalitarian nation in the developed world, Western world. Now we are the least equal. So as the empire falls and there's less money, more is going to the top and less to the rest, the top 10%. And the 90% are hurting. Certainly, men are not paid family wages anymore. They can't support dependent wives and children. Wives have to work outside the home as well as doing the work in the home, and mainly refuse. That's why the majority of women are single. They're also, and this is more exaggerated in the United States than some other places, but that's also why women are refusing to produce children. As I have said before, only 47% of American women say they want children. And if they're actually in a position to have them, they may change their minds because they have to work outside the home and they can't afford to work inside the home and outside the home simultaneously, and children need care. This is true all over the world. In Japan, they give bars $35 a head for having free mixers for males and females, hoping that they'll get together because they have an acute population shortage. Russia, Putin, in a very dictatorial way, has passed a law putting a tax on childless women and forbidding any kind of expression of the benefits of childlessness. So that where there used to be programs that women with children called in and talked about the problems they have in childcare and so on, those problems are off the air by law. Anything critical of taking care of children is off the air. Because women all over the world who have to work and who understand that we do have a voice and we should have a life can't take on double jobs. So that our country is responding by taking away abortion rights in many states, and also by having a vice president who calls childless women dried up cat ladies, who puts them down and who says women over 50 have no right to work in the labor force. They should be taking care of grandchildren. Whoops. Personal life has had a revolution in the United States. It's one of the reasons that people are in upheaval, particularly men. Men are 85% of violent criminals. Men are in the streets insane. If you're walking around a city like I do in New York, you have to watch out for whatever man is obviously crazy. And men are committing crimes because they've lost the woman who was there helping them to express their emotions, helping them to connect with children and other people and with one another, and they've lost the home that a woman maintained for them. But many of them haven't lost the entitlement. Even homeless, obviously oppressed men will whistle at a woman and call out things from their male privilege. But they no longer have the material basis of that privilege. And so that in order to adjust to this revolutionary change in the personal lives of Americans and our households, we'd have to do a lot of things. One is we'd have to take off the list of commodities that are sold the things that people need, so that people who work and also have kids, the majority who work and have kids, can have free food. They used to say Americans would never tolerate communal kitchens. However, 2 billion hamburgers are sold every year. Bad nutrition, but collective. Because people need support. We need decommodified food that isn't sold at a profit and is healthy in attractive places where people can go with their kids and have a decent meal. We also have to decommodify housing. There is an 18% increase in homelessness in the United States because housing is a commodity. So you want the most you can get, and you want to give the least as a landlord. That's why there's so many people on the street. You have to decommodify heat and cooling, because regulating temperature is a basic need for human beings. You have to decommodify gas and electricity. And you have to decommodify childcare, have universal childcare and quality childcare and medical care and elder care. Because you need to spend the money on that. And of course, you could take it from the $881 billion the United States spends in defense, even though the only war we've had on our soil is the Civil War, where we fought each other. The World Trade Center bombing was one bombing. We've been involved with our bloated military in invading other countries where we spent wild billions and lost, whether it was in Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and now our proxy war in Ukraine, which we're losing in spite of spending so many billions on armaments. We could do that if we had an Our Revolution movement to do it. We're a rich country, and we could stop depriving our people. And that's what I suggest for our own personal welfare. Thank you. Goodbye.